Fans love to complain about retcons in stories, especially in comics. And sure, they can be good, like Batman originally taking people out in almost every single one of his first few appearances, and adopting a rule to stop sending people to the Shadow Realm. But for every Batman, we get a Trouble and an X-Men Origins Blue. So today we're going to be dialing it back with a little bit more of a relaxed video, and I just want to talk about some of my favorite and least favorite retcons in comics. And let's begin the video a little more positive and talk about the ones that we're actually grateful for. And for me, one of the ones that's most impactful would be Batman no longer ending people's lives. And yeah, you might not think that that's actually a retcon since that's one of the biggest selling points of Batman entirely, but no. In his very first appearance in Detective Comics number 27, he punched a dude in the face, sending him into a vat of acid, and actually flat out saying he was happy that the dude lost his life. And that's not the only time that that happened in Golden Age Batman. I mean, here's a few more examples. Kicking someone's neck and breaking it. Shooting a vampire in the face. Hanging a man from an airplane. And in every one of these instances, he was happy that he ended them. And you might be asking, why especially is it important that Batman stop killing people? Well, you know, the fact that originally he was supposed to have killed the Joker in his very first appearance, but the editorial team at DC stepped in and made them change it, saying that the Joker actually survived. So, if Batman was still following in his previous footsteps, we wouldn't even have a clown prince of crime. Don't get me wrong though, Batman was trying to kidnap the Joker in issue number 2 and lobotomize him to put an end to his antics for good after the first time they met, so let's not act like he's still a saint. The next retcon I want to talk about that I'm thankful for would involve Superman. In the past, his power set was really not impressive. I mean, he couldn't do anything that he could do now. Flight? Nope. Super strength? Kinda. He could just jump about 300 feet in the air, jump about 600 feet forward, and lift like 1,200 pounds. And move around 100 miles an hour. Having him get extra powers like actual flight, heat vision, and insane levels of strength are better for the character. Because honestly, original recipe Superman's power set was weaker than original recipe Spider-Man's. I mean, there is a limit to this. We can't have the same Superman that's going to be able to lift 200 quintillion tons. That's ridiculous. Or Captain America being retconned into being not the first super soldier, with Isaiah Bradley working along with him. That is a positive retcon, as it expands the lore of the characters and would actually make sense if you go back and look at American history. I mean, seriously, America did some pretty messed up stuff. And of course we can't forget about the Green Lanterns. They've had probably one of the biggest retcons of all of them. Originally, the Green Lantern, Alan Scott, discovered the lantern on accident. It was in a train explosion, and we find out that the lantern wasn't from Oa, there were no Guardians, and there was no Green Lantern Corps at all. It was him, one guy. Oh yeah, and the lantern was actually able to speak, and it came from a green flaming meteorite thousands of years ago, which was recovered by the ancient Chinese and forged into the same kind of lamp that you would see the genie from Aladdin pop out of. Before it was discovered hundreds of years later and given to a man in a mental institution where it somehow ended up curing his insanity, and he fashioned it into the lamp that we know now. Oh yeah, plus it didn't work on wood. So Alan Scott could fly and be bulletproof and insanely impact resistant, but hit him with a bat and he's out like a light. So retconning this, making him actually an intergalactic space cop and building out the entire roster of Green Lanterns was insanely beneficial to the character. Because without this retcon, he would just be a one-off character who really wouldn't have much depth. But on the other side of that, Alan Scott's involved with another retcon, which some people view as rather unsavory. Now, personally, I don't know exactly when or why DC Comics decided to do this, but they ended up making Alan Scott attracted to dudes. And honestly, if somebody's into that more in their own life, who cares? That's fine. Anybody can live freely and do what they want as long as they're not encroaching on other people. Or, hurting anyone. But it becomes a point of contention when you ham-fist things in there just for the sake of representation. Or if it completely betrays the character. Meaning, if there's no prior examples of this actually happening or being the case, it becomes a retcon. And if it goes against the moral fabric of the character, or, established history, then people will get up in arms about it. Such as with some people with a retcon of Alan Scott. Or, the retcon that got me personally angry, Mystique being Nightcrawler's father. And seriously, I've had so many conversations with you guys in the comment section, and no one has been able to change my mind about this. We basically always knew that Mystique was Nightcrawler's mom, and in 2003 it was established that his father was Azazel, the demon-looking guy who could also bamf, had basically the exact same look as Nightcrawler, but with a goatee, and he was red. And you can account for the blue that he has and not the red since, his mom was blue. However, 20 years later, they decide to change the story and say that he was actually the son of Mystique and Mystique's wife, with Azazel being not involved at all. He was just the guy that Mystique was hooking up with on the side. Am I upset about the fact that Nightcrawler was now born to 2 women? No. Am I upset that this actually changes the fundamentals of the character of Nightcrawler, knowing the fact that he is an incredibly devout Catholic, being the direct descendant of a demon, or somebody who was an immortal that looked exactly like what you would expect a demon to look like who has been here since biblical times, and have the incredible impact of this character having to overcome his own heritage to embrace Catholicism, and strive to not end up like his father and to be a better person, and have that be completely changed to have 2 moms. Yeah, I'd say so. The 2 moms aspect has nothing to do with any frustration that I have towards this retcon. In fact, as many of you have pointed out in the comments, this was the original idea that Chris Claremont had for Nightcrawler when he was creating him, but the editors at Marvel thought that would be too extreme for the time, and he had to push that off somewhere else. I understand that they're trying to move forward by taking the original idea and implementing it nowadays. However, it makes absolutely no sense when you put it through the lens of looking through the past 40 years of history that this character has. You can make the analogy that in Dragon Ball Z, Goku out of nowhere finds out that he's a Saiyan from his brother landing and telling him that after all of these years of build-up. However, some seeds were planted. We knew that there was something different about him. We knew that he wasn't a normal human. Which would make sense when the Saiyans come in, explain the entire situation, and he finally understands that he isn't a human, he's an alien. That would be a natural evolution of the character. And yeah, it's different, but it still would be a natural step-by-step evolution. If A, then B, therefore C. However, with Nightcrawler in specific, when he was first introduced, we knew he had a mom. We knew nothing about the dad until 2003. Then it was established that it was going to be Azazel. Then, 20 years later, they completely axe that and go back to an original idea that never got published. That's the problem that I have, is the fact that it goes back and betrays the character's history. I forgot to record this part in the original video, but before anybody says anything too smart, yeah, she couldn't have just transferred her form into Azazel and created Nightcrawler because she's not a gene shifter. The only thing she can do is change her outward appearance. That's why when Wolverine is tracking her, her scent doesn't change. So on a genetic level, it's still just going to be Mystique. It's not going to change into Azazel or anybody else that she's transforming into. It's still going to be Raven Darkholme. No matter what she does, it's still going to be the same DNA, which makes no sense if she fathered Nightcrawler, because why does he look like Azazel at that point if she cannot transfer any of that DNA, which would carry those kind of characteristics? And then people always say, well, there are multiple different kinds of people out there in the Marvel Universe with similar or identical mutations that look the same but aren't related at all. And to that I say, that's awfully convenient, isn't it? Another retcon that I completely don't agree with is the fact that they've made Spider-Man basically the crux of an entire branch of magic. With the Web of Life and Destiny, the entire Spider-Verse, having these spider totems, it's dumb. I don't like it. I like my original Spider-Man. Because here's the thing. Because if you look at it and say that Peter Parker across the entire multiverse will always have this happen to him, it doesn't become special. I mean, Syndrome said it best. If all of them are special, none of them are special. And I understand that it's adding an otherworldly aspect to it, bringing in magic, having Madam Web and all that kind of crap. Sure, fine. You can enjoy that. I don't. I like the idea of these characters being individual and special. Yes, I do also like the multiverse, where you get different takes on people. However, I don't like the fact that they're all interconnected. I like the idea of it being special. Like Peter getting bitten by the spider was a complete freak accident. I don't like the idea that it was some preordained, destined event. Because if he was always intended to get these powers due to this Web of Life and Destiny and the spider totems and all that kind of bullcrap, then greatness wasn't earned. He was entitled to it. I'm also not saying that I don't like the fact that there are other people with spider-related powers in Marvel. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't like what they did to Peter Parker, and I wish that they would have left him alone. And the final retcon that I'm going to talk about is a twofer. And if you're a fan of the channel, you know exactly where I'm going. Back when the Ultimate Universe originally started with Marvel in the early 2000s, they wanted to give a new origin to Peter Parker. Something new, something fresh. How about, we change who his parents are? Richard Parker can stay, that's fine. But how about we make Aunt May his mom? With Marvel's Trouble.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was actually the original idea that they were going to have for Trouble. Aunt May was going to be just hoeing around, throwing it out like it was absolutely free, and hooking up with Uncle Ben and Richard Parker, his brother. However, she would become pregnant, but Uncle Ben wasn't the father because he was sterile. So, by deduction, you're able to find out it was Richard Parker. Oh, and by the way, he was seeing her best friend Mary the entire time. And if you haven't guessed, May and Mary look exactly like MJ and Gwen. Yeah, they're kind of retroactively putting a Sigmund Freud spin on Peter's relationships, huh? But thank God they ended up changing their minds, and at the last minute, they ended up changing it to a completely different universe, putting it off into its own little pocket dimension. Let's just say banishing it to the negative zone. And for that, I am truly grateful, because I wouldn't want a comic where Aunt May was actually Spider-Man's mother, who ended up giving the child away to the birth father and stepmother to raise, after she had gone around, was staying with abusive people in mobile homes, and at one point in the story was legitimately contemplating getting an abortion and ending any possibility of Spider-Man even existing. I wouldn't want that to be canon. There are many, many more retcons that have been in comics, and I'm sure you're thinking of some right now. And if you are, go ahead and let me know down below which are some of your favorites and least favorites. And who knows, I may have gotten some things wrong in this video, but you know what? That's the fun about doing things off the top of your head. It can happen, but a majority of the point still stands. Anyways, I gotta go. I have to go back to destroying your guys' childhood by exposing the deep dark secrets of Marvel and DC.